Woo, that is better. You guys have a ton of energy this morning. My goodness, that is awesome. It's probably that week off we took. Did you guys enjoy 4th of July? Anybody get to go out on the lake for 4th of July? Okay, yeah, great. Anybody catch some fireworks? Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. We had a great 4th of July weekend too, but you know what? We really miss seeing you guys here, so we're excited to be back here today. And if it's your very first time here in Transit today, we are so happy that you are here, that you are joining us this Sunday morning. We hope that you have a great time here and that we get to see you back here. And you know what? If you see me in the halls, I'd love for you to say hi and introduce yourself to me, because I love it whenever we have people here for the very first time. And if you don't know me yet, if we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Kevin, and I'm on staff here with Transit, and I get the privilege of kicking off a brand new series today that we are calling Space and How to Get More of It. And as we kick off this series, I want to share with y'all a little story of when I was in middle school and got some more space for the very first time. And this is when I was in 6th grade, and it was the first time that my parents decided that they were going to leave me home alone. Now, raise your hand if your parents have entrusted you with leaving you home alone yet so far. Okay, so good amount. Some of you have, some of you haven't yet. I get that. I was in 6th grade the first time I experienced it. And I want to tell you a little bit about it. See, my parents, they said, okay, we're going to let you stay home, and we're going to give you all these, guardrails, and make sure you don't go outside, make sure you don't answer the door if somebody knocks the door, the different rules that I had, and I was very clear on what those were and when they'd be back and all of that stuff. And so they did that, and of course, as soon as they were gone, I knew that I kind of wanted to push a little bit more beyond the boundaries that they put there for me. And so I actually went out in the garage, I got my bike, and I snuck out of the house. And I decided to ride my bike through all these back streets and different things, about 3 or 4 miles from where my house was, to a convenience store to go get a snack, and then ride my bike back home. Now, I knew the boundaries that my parents had put on me. I knew the rules that were in place, but you see, I really wanted more. I wanted more space and more freedom. And I thought that I had gotten to the right age, or I thought I was mature enough, or, man, I've made this ride a million times. It's no big deal. There's no risk involved. I'm just going to do it. And I decided that I was just going to take that. And so maybe some of you have experienced something like that as well. And I'm sure that nobody in here is nearly as bad as me. I'm sure none of you guys are all angels. You've never snuck out of your house or done anything like that. But, yeah, don't tell us if you have. We don't need to hear that. But for me, and it's probably the same for you, you're feeling this tension now as you enter middle school, or as you're going through middle school, it's that you want more space, right? You want more space. And for you, that may look like, I want more freedom to do the things I want to do, or to hang out with the people I want to hang out with. Or maybe for you, it's more like, I want more responsibility. Maybe for some of you, maybe you haven't been given permission to have a phone yet. Or maybe you have a phone, but you don't get to have the social media account that you really want to have yet. And you're thinking, I just want some more freedom and some more responsibility. And you're thinking about, how can I get more of that? And because right now you are wanting more space. And so my story doesn't end there. My story actually, for some of you who are in 8th grade, you may have heard a little bit more of the details of the story before. When I got back to my house, I found out that I actually locked myself out. I ended up having to sneak in by crawling through a doggy door to get back into my house. And suffice it to say, I got caught. And I got in a ton of trouble. And from that point on, it was a really long time before my parents ever trusted me enough to leave me home alone again. It was a long time before I was able to get more of that space that I wanted. And there was a lesson that I learned that day that was a really hard but important lesson, and that's this. It's that fighting for more space only leads to disappointment and frustration. And for you, maybe you've experienced this. Maybe you have, different authorities in your life, whether it's your parents or your teachers or your coaches, and there's been times where you have felt like you deserve more space, or you want more space, or you have earned more space, more freedom, or more responsibility, and you have fought to get that. Right? And maybe if you've done that, you've probably experienced this truth that fighting for more space only leads to disappointment and frustration. And maybe for you, that's like a coach that you want more playing time on the team, or you think that you should be higher up in what chair you are in band, or maybe you should get the premier spot on the play, and you look at your coach or your instructor or the director, and you're like, you're not giving me the space that I need. You're not giving me the freedom that I need, and you pull away, and we pull away to try to get it. And ultimately, we end up with disappointment and frustration. Now, one of the tendencies when we feel this is to just think that we just need to get through this season of life, right? Once I'm out of middle school and out of high school, when I'm an adult, this won't even be a problem anymore because I'm going to be the one in charge. I won't have to listen to my parents. I won't have to listen to my teachers. You know, maybe I think I'm going to be a professional athlete, but maybe not, and so I won't have coaches in my life. But here's the thing, y'all. You are always going to have some type of authority in your life. There's no point in time where you get to the point where like, there's just nobody I have to listen to and respect and honor anymore. That I am just the chief authority in my life. There's always going to be somebody in your life who has authority over you. And so the faster and the easier we can learn this lesson, the better off our lives are going to be in the long term. That this lesson that fighting for more space will only lead to disappointment and frustration. But the problem is that we're still left with the same question we started with at the beginning of this, and with the question that we're talking about throughout this series, which is, okay, I want more space. I know I want more space, more freedom, more responsibility. And if I can't get it by pulling away and by fighting with the people over me, then what exactly do I do to get it? What do I do to get more space? And it's really this. It's just understanding this truth that we're going to talk about, and that's that space increases as trust is earned. Space increases as trust is earned. And so actually, what this is saying is it's actually counterintuitive how you go about getting more space from your parents or your teachers or your coaches. Because what we want to do is, hey, I want more of this. I want more of this. So I'm distancing myself. I'm pulling away. I'm fighting for it. But what this says is that actually, if you want more space and more freedom, then you need to lean in to the authority over you. You need to lean in to your parents and what they want, to lean in to your coaches, to your teachers, to your instructor, to your director, whatever it may be. Lean into them and earn their trust. Because space increases as trust is earned. And there's a great person who really models this throughout his entire life. And he lived thousands of years ago, and thankfully we get to see his really most of his life story documented in the scriptures. And we're going to talk about him a little bit. You may have heard of him. His name is Joseph. Now, I want to be clear, we're not talking about Joseph from like Mary and Joseph. This is a different Joseph that lived even longer before that. And you may have heard a little bit about Joseph. I want to give you some backstory, though. Joseph lived a long time, even before Jesus, and he had a ton of brothers, and he was one of the youngest of a group of a bunch of brothers. And his brothers, he was actually one of the favorites of his father, and so his older brothers really didn't like him very much. And some of you may have siblings that you sometimes don't really like very much, or maybe your siblings don't like you very much. But these guys really didn't like Joseph. So much so that they end up selling Joseph to these people who were traveling by to turn him into a slave. They basically sold him away to someone so they didn't have to deal with him any longer. And so Joseph now, fast forward, he's in a foreign country, and he's a slave to this really, really wealthy Egyptian man. His name is Potiphar. And this is where we're going to pick up Joseph's story. And we're going to see how this truth, that space increases as trust is earned, is applied in Joseph's life. Right? And so the verse picks up here, and it says, Joseph found favor in his eyes. And they're talking about Potiphar, the master of the house. It says he found favor in his eyes, which basically just means that he earned his trust. Right? If you find favor with someone, it means that you have earned their trust. And so whatever it is that Joseph did, he earned the trust of his master. And it goes on. It says, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. I want to stop a minute and talk about just this word right here, entrusted. Because the bottom line we're talking about today is that space increases. What you're trying to get space increases as trust is earned. And this word entrust, this is the result of earning trust, is that you become entrusted. You become entrusted with things. And in fact, Joseph became entrusted with everything Potiphar owned. This is a slave from a foreign country who is living in his household and doing whatever he wants him to do. And ultimately, because of his actions, because of him choosing to lean in, he ended up being entrusted with everything he owned. Now, you guys may know, some of you that have heard the whole story of Joseph might know that his story doesn't end here. And Joseph's story continues, and he actually hits a lot more bumps. I mean, this guy had a rough go of it. While he's working for Potiphar and entrusted with everything he owned, he gets accused of something he didn't do and gets thrown in prison. And Joseph, not only here, but all throughout his life, if anybody had a reason to fight against authority, if anybody had a reason to rebel and say, no, I'm going to pull away, I'm going to fight for what's mine, the freedom that I should have, I don't deserve to be here, I don't deserve to be under your authority. If anybody had that right, Joseph had it. But he continued in every step of the way to lean in to the authority over him. He leaned into the warden of the prison, and ultimately he became in command of all the stuff in the prison as a prisoner himself because he earned the trust of the warden. He continued earning the trust of more and more people throughout his life, and ultimately, if you fast forward all the way to the end, Joseph earns the trust of the king of Egypt. And Joseph earns his trust so much so that Joseph becomes the second in command of the entire nation of Egypt, which at that time was the most powerful nation in the world. So this is now, starting from a slave, becomes the second most powerful man in the world who only answers to the king himself, who had servants of his own, who had all the freedom and responsibility he could ever want. All because he chose and he knew this truth, that space increases as trust is earned. And he chose to lean into his authorities rather than pulling away and fighting from him. He chose to do whatever it took to earn the trust of the people over him. And so, when you think about your life, and you think about areas that maybe you want more space or things that you want to do to get more space, ask yourself this question: how can I earn their trust today? And there can be a lot of different people. That might be your parents or your grandparents. It might be a coach or a teacher or a director or anybody that has authority over you. How can I earn their trust today? What can I do to earn my parents' trust today? Not worry about the space that I want or the freedom that I want. That's going to come down the road. But what I can control is how can I earn their trust today? And so as we head to small group, I want you to think about this, but there's one other question I want you guys to think about first. And as you head to small group, I want you to answer this question when you first get there. It's this: what is an area in your life that you would love to have more space? What's an area in your life that you would love to have more space? All right, we're